Since the trial is coming up soon, I'm excited to see what 2025 has in store. In 2024, there were significant developments in this case. Let's recap all of the events from 2024 as we prepare for the trial of a lifetime in 2025, the Idaho murder case involving Bryan Kohberger.
Bryan Kohberger, the so-called killer, has filed a motion asking the judge to throw out the indictment against him. His attorney says the indictment should be dismissed on the grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and here's the big one, prosecutorial misconduct by withholding exculpatory evidence. The motion.
Was Edward Snowden right when he talked about surveillance? Could this be the case with Bryan Kohberger?
Why should people care about surveillance?
Because even if you're not doing anything wrong, you're being watched and recorded, and the storage capability of these systems increases every year consistently by orders of magnitude, to where it's getting to the point you don't have to have done anything wrong. You simply have to eventually fall under suspicion from somebody, even by a wrong call. You simply have to eventually fall under suspicion from somebody.
If you got to know him well, you would see layers of things that were a bit off or different.
What I do know is that Bryan did have anger issues.
You could tell there was some off about him. Very quiet, calculated about what he says. Actually very similar to how he walked into court, no different.
And then they can use the system to go back in time and scrutinize every decision you've ever made, every friend you've ever discussed something with, and attack you on that basis to sort of derive suspicion from an innocent life and paint anyone in the context of a wrongdoer.
Tonight, Bryan Kohberger's childhood friend Thomas speaking to ABC News, describing the Idaho murder suspect as mean in high school, saying Bryan was eager to be seen as dominant.
He would just put me in, he would grapple me and put me in headlocks and arm bars and stuff like that.
If you have known this individual, contact us.
And Chief Fry telling me that within an hour of releasing Kohberger's name, more than 400 tips poured in.
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News. Just following up on the 911 call, you said that you don't believe that's the killer. Can you conclusively rule out the person that called 911 from inside the home as a suspect in this case?
Can you go ahead and just ask that one more time, please?
The person that was inside the home that called 911 that was not one of the roommates. Can you conclusively rule that person out as a suspect at this point?
I don't think I said that it wasn't one of the roommates. I said that it was used with the roommate's phone.
I believe somebody asked if that was the killer, and you said no.
No, that's correct.
Was there someone there other than the two roommates when police responded to the home?
So will you clarify that for me?
You're not confirming a roommate called 911, but used the roommate's phone. So was there someone else at the home other than those two roommates?
There was other friends that had arrived at the location.
How many?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure at this time, to be quite honest.
Do you guys have any idea if the killer's still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer in terms of their physical location?
We are looking everywhere that evidence would lead us. I can't say if the person's here. I can't say what community the person's in. We're utilizing every resource we can to make that location of that individual. And part of that is the safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep our community as safe as we can.
Being so close to the border, does that make it kind of automatically an interstate investigation? Can you comment on that?
I cannot comment on that. I'm not even aware.
If you look in Washington at all, I guess, for...
We're looking everywhere. I'm going to take two more questions.
That Ethan Chapin suffered a slash to the neck, but I have to say that both of these details are in direct conflict with what the coroner had originally told us right here on this program exclusively. And also, they conflict directly with what police have said as well.
In order to figure out the root, you have to look at the fruit. The University of Idaho has not produced good fruit, and there's a reason behind it that I will examine today. From murders to assaults, there's been a lot of crime going on inside of this tiny town, and almost every single incident seems to go through these three individuals. This is what I like to call the Dark Trio. Similar to the Bermuda Triangle, which is a region in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean, in which ships, planes, and people have vanished, in this case, we are not in water, and the students are the targets.
When does someone call a coroner, and what is a coroner death investigator? I'm going to call it a coroner for the episode?
That's fine.
Okay. What is a coroner?
So a coroner is an elected position, but what we do is we go out when someone dies, or we're called every time someone dies that lives within our parish.
Okay, or county.
Or county. In Louisiana, it's parishes. So we're called if it's a natural case, or if it's a homicide, suicide, any of the manners of death. Anytime it's an accident or just your general natural death, it comes to us.
Okay.
We have to pick up the phone and decide, is this natural causes or is there foul play? We work closely with police.
A few murders happened in Idaho, and guess who's always around? Chief James Fry.
In a developing story now, Moscow police say that they just pulled a body out of Paradise Creek over the weekend. They say the body is that of 19-year-old Hudson Lindau. He was pulled from the water around 11 a.m. Sunday morning. While police have not announced how he died, they did not suspect foul play was involved. We'll keep you updated as we learn more.
Well, according to the University of Idaho's past commencements, Kathy graduated in 2001, but started in 1995. And guess who graduated in 1995? Julie Fry. That's Chief James Fry's wife. She is also the treasurer and court clerk of Latah County. Is it possible that they knew each other or crossed paths at some point? Like Kathy, Chief James Fry was also appointed and elected to chief police. He stated his connections with Moscow community helped him in his position. Also, James Fry graduated from the University of Idaho, similar to Kathy. President Scott Green also attended the University of Idaho. Is it a coincidence that these three obtained a vast amount of authority in that town? James Fry worked as the main detective in the murder case of Katie Benoit. Another death was a freshman, Joseph Widerick, who was found dead and his death ruled hypothermia. No foul play was suspected. Fry was also on the scene in the Hudson Lindau case, where the University of Idaho student was found dead under a bridge. His death was ruled an accidental drowning, and no foul play was suspected. Here's a photo of Hudson posing with the 1122 King Road home in the background. The incident happened just 6 months before the Idaho murders. On the other hand, in the Hannah Clay case, where she was supposedly roommates with Maddie, rumors circulated that she was allegedly bullied and moved out of her home with Maddie. She died shortly after from an alleged OD. The timing is suspicious, but when investigated, Hannah's dad came out to say there's no evidence of foul play. However, someone claimed that Hannah's roommate stated on Facebook that the OD was a cover-up and that she was actually stabbed in the torso. She claimed that no one believed her and thinks she is crazy. Is this all a coincidence? The point I'm making is, Fry gets on the crime scene and does the investigating. Julie keeps records pertaining to county courts, personal property, and personal records. Also, she's a treasurer, which means she is charged with safekeeping and investing county funds. Mabbitt determines the cause of death and assists the nonprofit iBank for organs. Scott Green was also appointed to his position in July of 2019. All were appointed to those positions. Scott succeeded Chuck Staben after some allegations surfaced and caused controversy.
And Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Scott Green, President, University of Idaho. Today's news and arrest is a welcome one. It's relief to our university, our community, and our extended Vandal family.
And to build on their success. Every Vandal I've talked to has a personal story, how the University of Idaho elevated them, gave them opportunities that they thought were never possible.
Idaho, Idaho, go, go, go.
What did we just watch? What?
Is it a coincidence that vandal means a person who deliberately destroys or damages public or private property? And Scott, who's a former vandal, decided to tear down a murder home like a true vandal. A true vandal, ripping through the home like a wild barbarian. You can run, but you cannot hide. Wherever you go, there you are.
Public records from Latah County show a connection to the King Road house we never knew about until today. The president of UNI has a family connection to it. In fact, his family used to own it. We asked why the university didn't disclose this sooner, given the rampant misinformation about this case, but we've not heard back yet.
So in your experience, what is it that you saw when you showed up?
Well, there was a lot of blood. It was, yeah.
Did she tell you anything about anything that happened earlier or anything like that?
I've just been here the past hour.
Okay.
Just trying to go to bed.
Removed 2 mattresses that appeared to be blood-stained from the home where 4 Idaho students were brutally murdered. As Jonathan Hunt tells us, this comes as we learn more about how investigators are able to track down the suspect in the weeks leading up to his arrest.
Among the items our cameras saw being removed were mattresses. They were wrapped in heavy-duty white plastic, but beneath the plastic we could just about make out 2 large dark
arrested. That's 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger in custody today and wearing an anti-suicide vest.
Around 3 a.m., Kohberger reportedly had a blank stare as he was arrested and also asked if anyone else had been taken into custody.
All of the pain seems to follow, like a shadow dark and cold to the touch.
Why does the University of Idaho call their student athletes vandals? According to the University of Idaho, the name was given more than a century ago by a basketball team coached by Heck Edmondson. They received that name because of their ferocious and intense defense. That sports writers said they vandalized their opponents. Edmondson, a native of Moscow, Idaho, who graduated in 1910, coached the basketball team, which was then called the Vandals. He was also a member of the Kappa Sigma fraternity. Scott Green is also a member of the Kappa Sigma fraternity. Is that a coincidence? It seems like the people in power of appointed positions are always members of fraternities. These are Greek fraternities and sororities that comes from Greek gods and goddesses.
I kind of want to talk to you about the importance of Greek life at the university. It makes about a third of the student population. And as times evolve, we see nationally how Greek life has evolved within the national media, within our campus ourselves. What do you see as the future of Greek life at Idaho and the importance of it?
We're hopeful. I'm very hopeful in the future. I'm very optimistic. We have a very strong Greek system here. Greeks are natural leaders on our campus, and as you point out, they make up between a quarter and a third of our university. Our foundation, alumni board, all of our advisory boards. Greeks, our alumni that lead those, the vast majority are Greek. So it's just it's part of who we are. It's part of our fabric.
A vast majority of the University of Idaho leaders are part of Greek life. If you don't align with their program, they'll find a way to get rid of you.
Tells me she worries about what the next season of Vandal volleyball will bring.
I am really, really afraid because I have been so vocal about everything that I'm going to be experiencing extreme retaliatory action. I don't know why the school and the athletics department is choosing, or at least what it feels like is they're choosing an abusive coach over 13 girls. We tried to follow the student athlete handbook, use all of the tools that we were given to hopefully receive an appropriate response. But every single turn, it feels like we've been brick-walled. So where do we go now,
Last October, Emma filed this official complaint with the university's Office of Civil Rights and Investigations, claiming things like body shaming, ignoring medical advice, and putting players at greater risk of injury, withholding food, and creating a culture of fear, humiliation, embarrassment, and intimidation. She also says at one point an assistant coach drove several players in a team van at almost 100 miles an hour. She shared this video with Prem 2 of the speedometer hovering just under 100. And when questioned about it later, Emma says the head coach dismissed their concerns and told the U of I athletic department that the women were making it up. Emma says the situation was so bad, the women asked that the official investigation be delayed until the end of the season.
We were informed that our names would be released to the coaches as soon as the investigation started. And we were so worried about retaliation and our safety that we didn't want him to still be responsible for our care and know who we are.
According to Emma's complaint here, she says more than a dozen players also endured similar abuse. And they often said that if they took those concerns directly to university officials to report it, they said they were often not taken seriously or sometimes outright dismissed. So I took those concerns to the top communications director here at the University of Idaho. When did the university first learn about these accusations against the volleyball coach?
So my understanding is the first allegations came into athletics and for review in October. Then on the request of the complainants, anything further was delayed, and then the investigation began then in December.
Does it concern the university that 13 young women have come forward and said that they have ongoing complaints?
Anytime there's a concern brought to the university, that's taken very seriously.
So I'm just going through this particular complaint from Emma. She addressed a number of things, including comments about looks, driving players to and from events at almost 100 miles an hour, retaliating if actions are reported. Are those particular things acceptable from coaching here at the University of Idaho?
I can't speak about a particular investigation or specific complaints.
But are those particular things?
I can't speak about them.
But in general, if anyone was doing that who was a staff member at the University of Idaho, do you think that those things are acceptable?
I'm not going to answer that question.
What can you tell me about what the university is doing currently?
So right now, the outside investigators are looking into the allegations within the volleyball department. They have been asked to work expediently and bring us back a full report.
And you have no idea what the timeline is for that?
I don't know.
How long does that process generally take?
It depends on the specific investigation.
Ballpark?
It depends.
Months?
It
Years?
depends. It depends.
Okay, so then the report comes back, and who gets it?
And those reports go to the president.
And anyone else? Then
I don't know.
You don't know where those reports go?
No, I don't.
Do you have a message to students who feel that their concerns are not being addressed?
So as I've said, anytime that a student brings concerns forth to the university, we take those very seriously. We do look into them and take action as necessary.
If we all leave, who's there to make sure it doesn't keep happening?
Even though Scott agreed to tear down the Idaho murder home, stating it's a constant reminder of the heinous acts that went on inside of it and continues to draw unwanted attention. Yet he recently stated that he's publishing a book on the Idaho student murders. What are all of these sacrifices for? Why are they keeping things quiet? What are they feeding? There's something or someone begging for blood, and there's Idaho Greeks that continue to feed it.
And in case you didn't know this, Idaho is the only state that specifically outlaws cannibalism. Still the case, nothing's changed there, but there was some concern after those who keep tabs on what's happening in the State House saw cannibalism, just that word, cannibalism, on the agenda, or the menu, as it were, for today.
The committee will now consideration RS 31078, Representative Scott.
In one of the most anticipated moments of the morning,
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Republican Representative Heather Scott stepped to the podium in the House State Affairs Committee.
RS 31078, cannibalism. And I know this seems like it's a heavy topic, actually. It might seem kind of gruesome, and it kind of is.
Cannibalism is already a crime in Idaho, under a chapter titled Mayhem. Any person who willfully ingests the flesh or blood of a human being is guilty of cannibalism. It was passed in 1990 after a rash of unfounded satanic panic investigations in Idaho during the 80s. Representative Scott wants to add a line to that law. Anyone who willfully provides said flesh and blood to another person to ingest without that person's knowledge or consent is also guilty of cannibalism.
Not only is this a national issue to Donahue, but he says that the Treasure Valley has become a drug corridor, and if action isn't taken quick, lives will be lost.
It's frightening, quite frankly.
The war against drugs coming to the southern border.
We as a society should be frightened.
Is a fight Cannon County Sheriff Kieran Donahue has been involved in for more than a decade.
This is not a border issue. As you know, as you've heard me say many times, this is every state right now is a border state. Whatever comes out that border lands in every single state in the United States, and we are certainly not excluded.
That fear has only grown for Sheriff Donahue.
Mabbitt adds that she does not believe the toxicology report on each of the 4 University of Idaho students will be relevant to the manner or cause of death.
The Idaho students appeared to live more comfortably than the average college student. Boats, trips, designer clothes. Where did it all come from? Reflecting on their history, I didn't see much of this lavish lifestyle until they enrolled at the University of Idaho. For example, Maddie and Kaylee were seen wearing Dr. Martens boots priced at over $200. They took trips to Hawaii, Cabo, Mexico, and Sorority, British Columbia. However, the most extravagant purchase was a Range Rover. According to Kaylee's mom, she bought a brand new Range Rover Evoque, priced between $35,000 and $65,000. Kaylee was set to graduate in December and embark on a journey across Europe, starting a well-paid marketing job in Austin, Texas. This aligns with the fact that Steve Gonsalves allegedly works as an IT support specialist, earning up to $70,000 per year. What doesn't add up is how a college student can afford a Range Rover, trips across South America and Canada, and a backpacking trip across Europe. The Idaho police stated that many individuals were illegally smuggling substances across the southern border. The U.S. Route 95 highway, which begins at the southern border and passes through California, Nevada, and Idaho, was often used for this purpose. The cartel took advantage of this route to flood illegal substances into communities. They would sometimes find Americans to sell for them.
He's afraid until some of the supply coming in through the border is shut off, things will only get worse.
The last thing we need is these young people getting involved with these narcotics, methamphetamine, heroin, fentanyl. This is deadly stuff. You just don't come back from it.
And what better place to sell than a small town full of college kids?
2 women were arrested after police found a large amount of drugs in their car. Idaho State Police stopped the car on I-15 north around Idaho Falls on Sunday.
A search resulted in the discovery of almost 2,000 fentanyl pills valued at $55,000, methamphetamine, marijuana, and a loaded firearm. The 2 women, Cindy Chavez and Virginia Adams, were arrested and booked at Bonneville County Jail.
The Moscow police had to invest in a dog trained to detect illegal substances. Chief James Fry requested the council to allocate funds for the dog in order to detect any suspicious substances. This measure was intended to lower the rate of substance abuse, but unfortunately, it had the opposite effect, leading to an increase in substance-related incidents. 2 former local students were arrested for the death of a University of Idaho student, Caden Young. They allegedly sold Caden a bad batch, leading to an OD and caused his death. It raises questions about their supplier. Who was their dealer? Could their dealer have also approached the Idaho students? With the lack of direct evidence at the crime scene, this seems like a professional job. Is it possible that this was a hit from the cartel? Or was this a hit from another college student? The most concerning aspect is that coroner Kathy Mabbitt dismissed the toxicology report as irrelevant. However, reports indicate that there were substances in the roommate's system.
There was a lot of blood. It's a very sad scene.
Mabbitt adds that she does not believe the toxicology report on each of the 4 University of Idaho students will be relevant to the manner or cause of death. Now, Mabbitt has been the county coroner for 16 years in Latah County. She says in that time there have been at least 2 other multiple homicide scenes that she's been involved in. But she says this current homicide investigation is the only one she's been to where there are 4 people at one scene.
Which substances were involved? Allegedly the same ones being funneled across the southern border. Now, is that a coincidence? I think not.
Whatever comes out of that border lands in every single state in the United States, and we are certainly not excluded.
We know that substances are funneled into this area through the southern border, and the US Route 95 highway leads directly into Idaho. Emma and Demetrius were allegedly dealers of these substances. The roommates made significant purchases on trips, vehicles, and other items. Additionally, the taxi driver stated that the murder home was a known spot to purchase illegal substances. Was there something they were trying to dispose of on the night of the murders? Could this explain why the surviving roommates waited hours to call the police? Bethany and Dylan allegedly moved to a different area. One must consider, did they move to escape the town? Or are they hiding from the cartel? After the murders, I noticed some unsettling actions by the victims' parents and Sigma Chi. A post from 4chan initially suggested that Ethan and Xana were the main targets after an argument at a Sigma party. What are they hiding? There's something strange about all of this.
Hills Resort says the Chapins have been guests through multiple generations.
Their family has been coming forever.
Marketing and event specialist Whitney Hutchins would know.
I'm also one of the family members, so I grew up here in 3rd generation.
Plenty of people come and go at the resort, but Ethan Chapin made a lasting impact as a guest, employee, and friend.
Losing Ethan was tremendous. Losing Ethan was tremendous. I mean, that loss is tremendous, and I can't really articulate how big it is for so many people. I mean, he touched everybody's life.
And now, Stacy Chapin has written a children's book about Ethan called The Boy Who Wore Blue. A portion of the profits will also go to the foundation, Ethan's Smile.
And the only thing I can explain to people how the book came about is I think it's like a country artist who goes through a breakup and writes their greatest hit. It literally just came to me in the middle of the night.
She told me that the whole family loves country music, especially Ethan. He really loved Morgan Wallen. And yes, these are photos of the Chapins with Wallen at a recent concert. Morgan Wallen got wind of all this, and the Chapin family was invited to his show in San Diego. These are pictures from the after show when they got to meet him backstage. Ethan was a triplet. His brother and sister were so excited to be there too. They all got to meet Morgan, and they also met his mom. Stacy says it was an incredibly bittersweet full circle moment for all of them. And she posted, truthfully, the show would have been enough. We were all over the moon to go. And then Morgan handed us a donation check for the Ethan Smile Foundation. It was one of the kindest gestures in my life. I still can't believe it happened. Morgan, thank you for everything.
Losing Ethan was tremendous. I mean, that loss is tremendous. And
Count of three. 1, 2, 3. Oh, wow.
One of the 4 University of Idaho students killed last November was honored in a special memorial that was happening at his fraternity.
Ethan Chapin, along with his brother Hunter, were both members of Sigma Chi fraternity last night, Hunter was awarded the first ever Ethan Chapin Memorial Scholarship.
But the recipient tonight is Hunter. He is receiving the first memorial scholarship of Ethan's, and that's pretty special.
Yeah, so people from all over the world donated more than $125,000 to this scholarship fund, and it will be a yearly scholarship from now on. Hunter was unanimous choice to receive the award in his first year in honor of his brother.
D9 organizations are just college games. D9 organizations are just college games.
You are watching a humiliation ritual in real time. The cutting of the hair has always been a sign of humiliation. Ethan at first was amused by the act. Then after the guilt kicked in, his facial reaction changed. Notice how he removed himself from the area and did not want to participate in this ritual.
Ethan was always in our house. Dana was a good friend before Ethan even came up. But that's all I really want to talk about right now because I actually have class here in like 15 minutes.
Does anyone know where they were during that timeline? Like there's still this big chunk where...
As of right now, we've told Moscow PD, Idaho State Police, and the FBI all we know. We're kind of leaving it up to them to piece it together. Obviously, we don't have the utilities or resources to do it on our own, so we're just putting full faith in the officers and the detectives doing it. But that's all I really know right now.
Are there any cameras around?
Not on the property.
Losing Ethan was tremendous.
On Sunday night, that fraternity named Ethan's sister Maisie, right there in the middle, their official sweetheart of Sigma Chi. You can see Ethan's brother Hunter. He's like right behind her to the left with his arm up and around a friend. He's standing there behind his sister. He's also a Sigma Chi member. Those brothers then serenaded Maisie with their famous song, Sweetheart of Sigma Chi, and they each presented her with a rose. The song and the ceremony are actually world famous, recorded dozens of times, and actually made into 2 movies as well. Becoming a Sigma Chi sweetheart is a pretty big deal. There is one named for every chapter of the fraternity, and there's an international person who gets that honor as well. The sweetheart can wear the Sigma Chi letters and is considered a beacon of all that the brothers strive to be.
The donor of the Montana campus was a Sigma Chi. The first president and 3 professors were Sigma Chis. There is probably no state in the Union where Sigma Chi's influence is so strongly felt and expressed.
Stairs to the back deck. Interesting.
So this is your place, so I'm going to hold you responsible. Because it is your place, you're also responsible for everybody here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to grab your info.
Yeah.
And if I do have to come back here, a $300-some ticket's coming your way.
Okay.
And it only gets more expensive from there. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's
okay.
fair. Absolutely.
I'd much rather you spend that $300 on beer or something fun than a noise ticket, right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. That being said, wearing questions? Don't do it again?
Yep.
I think we'll have a few hours to finish it. So, any questions for me?
No.
All right. Have a great day.
Take care.
44 Idaho police officers had their law enforcement certifications revoked because of misconduct. Law enforcement records show the total number of Idaho decertifications in 2020 was up from 2019, when just 39 officers were stripped of their credentials. 486 Idaho police officers have been decertified since 2002.
What the police report said at the probable cause warnings is not what these kids were all told.
Yeah.
It's not.
Chief Fry is approaching retirement after 29 years. But why so soon? The Kohberger case hasn't gone to trial. Yet, Fry wants to retire. It's not only Chief Fry. Moscow, Idaho Police Department had many officers retire right after the Idaho murders. Mainstream media might think nothing of this, but I will reveal the dark truths and the real reason behind these mass retirements. Moscow Police Department has us focused on the wrong things. On the day the bodies were discovered, many people had questions. So many questions that Chief Fry couldn't answer any of them.
There was other friends that had arrived at the location.
How many?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure at this time, to be quite honest.
Kids were fleeing to school. Businesses were closing due to this killer being on the loose. Moscow Police Department started to get scrutinized with more questions, and the citizens of Idaho demanded answers. Due to the heavy amounts of pressure and publicity, this left Moscow with two choices: continue investigating tips and leads on the case, or shut the public up. They went with the latter, leading to an arrest of a man named Bryan Kohberger and happy students who returned back to campus. But what happens when the suspects may be the police? New filings revealed the Brady Giglio violation connected to one of the officers on Kohberger's case. This means that the officer is a part of an internal affairs investigation, which could lead to the case being dismissed and destroy the credibility of the officer. If you take a look at when this occurred, it was filed on March 27th by Prosecutor Thompson. Just 1 week prior, on March 20th, the University of Idaho released this letter notifying the families of the victims that they will be pursuing to demolish the Idaho home. Just 5 months after the killings, and 1 week before the Brady Giglio violation was discovered, the university decided to pursue demolition. Why so fast? Did they know about this prior to? It seems like once they realized officers were under fire, they decided it was time to bring the home down. But why? To cover up evidence? During this same time, a wave of retirements started to flood the desk of Moscow PD Human Resources Department.
Flight 325, I'll be out of service for the last time. I'm ready to go fishing.
Deputy Mikulisik, out of service for the final time at 16:05 hours.
For Chief Fry. I started the interview by asking him, why now?
I just think it's time, you reach that point where you've been in law enforcement for a long time and you've accomplished a lot of the things you want to accomplish, and time to move on to something new and maybe, re-energize myself with something new.
Any plans of what comes next in the future?
Well, I think, I announced this morning on the radio that I'm putting my name in for sheriff, so we'll see how that goes.
You'll miss it.
Yeah, I think everybody that gets out of law enforcement says they miss the camaraderie.
And finally, Chief Fry is set to retire in May 2024 to become a sheriff. But what's the real reason?
Your ask about the white Elantra, that came on December 7th or so. Where in the timeline can you tell us did Kohberger come onto the radar.
So that's all part of those pieces that we have to hold until we can release information with the, after he gets to Idaho and the release of that information. But we're bound to hold that.
But when you asked for public information about that Elantra, you said the occupants of that car may have critical information. It was plural. Was there a reason for that?
Start by explaining why this search for this white vehicle.
So we have information of a white vehicle that was in the area either during the time frame of the homicide or around the time frame of the homicide, and we are just wanting to talk to the individuals who are in that vehicle. They may have some valuable information for us. And we're looking for a 2011 to a 2013 Hyundai Elantra. So any assistance you can give us, anybody that owns one, anybody that knows of someone who owns one or may have been driving one, if you could get a hold of us through our tip line or call us directly, we'd appreciate that. Well, it's part of our investigation. I said early on that we're not going to let any stone go unturned. And I meant that, and we're following up on everything.
So this is so interesting. Look, I know that knives are common in Idaho. It's a big hunting area, so it's not unusual to have a lot of knife stores. But you were able to at least get to 3 of them today. All 3 of them said they'd been visited by the police. That's correct, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They said at some point over the last 38 days, they've been visited by police and, again, just trying to hand over whatever they could to help provide more context to the police.
So, but the weird thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, because this was astounding in your reporting today, that the police did not ask any of the store owners or managers or workers that you spoke with today. They did not ask them if they had sold a particular kind of knife. That question was not asked of the places you visited.
Yeah, I had visited a hardware store, an antique store, and a sporting goods store. And from the owners, the managers, and the employees I spoke to, they all said that when it came to around the time of this murder, the police did not ask them what kinds of knives they sold, what types of knives they sold, how many knives they've sold.
Everything. Just like we're in this new phase now, and we're going to follow up to get to know who he is and everything about him that we can.
Fry mistakenly revealed that multiple people were involved. So how did this lead them to one individual who doesn't match the description? It seems like Fry realized that this is only going to get worse, and just like his friends, decided to retire before it's too late.
Holy shit, we have another bomb interview. Basically, there's this kid named Dave, and he said there were a bunch of Snapchat groups that he knew about that morning, hours before the first 911 call.
Dave is the first person to come forward that has a similar story to what Kim's daughter was saying.
What? Snapchat's basically saying that I did not use Snapchat for 12, 13 hours all day Sunday. That is not true. That is not true.
At the same time,
I guess the question is can the FBI take that data? Snapchat.
Of course. The FBI has the capability of asking these providers to not publish such information and making sort of disappear.
Many unanswered questions. Why did the surviving roommates wait almost 8 hours after the murders to call 911? Why did the killer spare the life of Kaylee Gonzalez's dog? And perhaps most important, why were the lives of 2 roommates spared?
The surviving roommate in the Idaho College killings failed to call 911 the night of the slayings because she apparently believed the killer was a party guest.
One of the details that we've come to learn is that she didn't think anything other than just noisy roommates was a problem. She thought her roommates were horsing around and being loud in the middle of the night.
Shocking new revelations in the brutal murders of 4 Idaho college students last fall. A new report claims the 2 roommates who survived the massacre were awake and texting each other while their 4 friends were stabbed to death one by one.
What did you say to Adam? I told him everything.
Are you nervous?
A little bit.
Yeah. The fact that he's coming forward, it takes a lot of courage, and I don't want his life to be affected in a negative way because of internet sleuths. So we pitched down his voice and we didn't show his face at all because we want to protect him.
I was telling you the other day, it's like cracking back into trauma, you know, and just like a bunch of stuff that you just want to forget.
So right now we are looking up messages that were in the Snapchat group that Dave was a part of.
I'm pretty sure that's it. But that does not look like 3 days worth of Snapchats that I would even send today.
Sent, saved, chat. And these are your messages.
Yeah,
that's it.
This is.
And it wouldn't even show
This
other
looks like
people.
everything that I like can see or can send. Wait, look at the dates. The 12th.
So 13th.
Look at the timestamp. 05:16 in the morning. Look at the next timestamp. 17:35. What? Snapchat's basically saying that I did not use Snapchat for 12, 13 hours all day Sunday. That is not true. That is not true.
At the same time.
That's just the group chat. That's not even my individual snaps. Where are all of my snaps that I sent to people asking if they were okay? And this is saying, this is two ways, right? This is saying that I didn't message anybody for 12 hours and nobody messaged to me for 12 hours. That's also considering all of the other group chats I was in too. Radio silent for 12 hours? No. Guaranteed, no.
Today I'm going to be meeting with Kim, and this is the first time that she will be seen on camera. To recap, your daughter claims that in the hours before the police were called, she and a group of other students were in a Snapchat group discussing the murders. Do you remember details that your daughter told you about what was in the Snapchat group?
So the details were, there was multiple people inside, and the girls had seen somebody outside, and that is why they locked themselves in the room. And they were awake, aware, and then they called friends to come over.
But the Snapchat groups, I feel like, could be the one piece of really evidence, because people want to see things on paper. And
sure, when you have Snapchats out there and text messages out there, that there wasn't just one person there, and that kids were on the scene, in the crime scene, in the house. And how could you not call 911 when you heard those screams? And you can't tell me they didn't scream. All I'm saying is that it's a really small town. This is a really bad crime. I hope that the students are as involved as I believe that they are.
So I get that very strongly. So there's a mole in the house. Now, the mole can be working for the good side or the bad side, the crime family or the cops, right? Like, I don't know which side, and sometimes the cops can be bad and the crime family can be good because it's all flipped and crazy.
Police have reiterated that this appears to be a targeted attack with no signs of forced entry into the home.
Locks like this? A former tenant posted this photo and says all 6 bedrooms had combination locks.
It's believed the students had a lock on their door similar to this. This is a keypad lock, and I'm at AAA Architectural Hardware in Manhattan with Richard Brown, who is the owner. Are these things reliable?
They're very reliable when they're installed properly and when they're used properly. You press the code that was pre-programmed in, push down on the lever handle, open the door, and then close the door behind you. And it should be locked.
I also then whipped right over to Dylan, and there is a complete mask over her energy field. I cannot read her for the life of me, and she is not who she presents herself to be. I will tell you that. I feel like it's a complete inversion. It's completely inverted. It's not as she presents herself.
Police now revealing that before a 911 call was made, the 2 surviving roommates of a deadly rampage that killed 4 students summoned friends to the off-campus home near the University of Idaho, telling authorities they thought someone on the 2nd floor had, quote, passed out and was not waking up.
So people can start to wonder if Bryan's innocent. Your Honor, Bryan is innocent. And he has an absolute 6th Amendment right to have his hearings in public.
It doesn't get better than this. Only a fool to let
obsessive. He is fastidious. He's about 6 feet tall. He's socially awkward. He planned this whole thing out. Did you notice the charges? He didn't go in to steal. He didn't go in to rape anybody. He went into that home with the intent to kill. As we speak, Jason, they are tearing his Pullman apartment apart for any notes or writings, anything that can match him up to this murder, and I predict they will find it. I guarantee you they're going to find something, some trace in that car, be it the front, the steering wheel, the ignition, the hatchback. There will be something in that car.
Newly released DNA evidence, which shows no DNA from any of the 4 murder victims that was found in Kohberger's home or car.
This entire court is a sham operation to cover for people who really did what happened in Moscow, Idaho.
We sealed the records in this case, or we asked the judge to seal the records because we thought there were other suspects, and lo and behold, what do we learn now? That there are not 1 but 2 unidentified male specimens that arguably are at the scene.
The real killers are still out there.
We've heard them say that they've given us 95% of discovery. We've heard them say they've given us all of the discovery, and those things just aren't true. They're just not true. You can see from the list of things we don't have, there's no way we have 95% of it.
I started to wonder, why is Bill Thompson hiding evidence from the defense? If they were certain that Bryan is a suspect for these crimes, they would have already handed over the evidence. If there's nothing to hide, why are they not cooperating with the process? Instead, there has been a lengthy battle with the prosecution for evidence that has been altered.
According to Ann Taylor, they have received portions of the video and long sections of the audio that have been withheld. This is a bit peculiar. Why would there not be audio on some of it, but there's audio on the main parts that the state is presenting? Really don't know. Is something being cut out and removed?
Completely missing.
Isn't the first TUI process, and the court is aware. We've been pursuing TUI process for all types of information for months. So the characterization that we are just consciously withholding information to frustrate the defense is utter nonsense. That is not true. We will provide everything we can that is providable under the rules.
Your Honor, I want to respond to that, and I can give you particular examples of things. And it's already been ordered to be given to us, the cast report, which was a draft that we were promised to have by March 31st. It's May 2nd. We don't have it. So for the prosecutor to stand up and say that I'm misrepresenting things, he's misrepresenting things.
And destroyed.
Let's take you out there live to King Road in Moscow, Idaho, where the sun has not yet come up yet, but the demolition, if my watch is correct, beginning more than 15 minutes early.
All of heaven rejoices when words are spoken in love. All of heaven rejoices when words are spoken in love.
The probable cause affidavit was written by a novice police officer named Brett Payne. This document was relied upon to arrest Bryan Kohberger and substantiate the case against him. Now, Bill Thompson states that the affidavit of probable cause is irrelevant at this stage. Why isn't he relying on the probable cause affidavit now? It's absurd to think that Bryan doesn't have the right to challenge the probable cause affidavit, as it was used to procure warrants for his arrest. Speaking of the probable cause affidavit, what actually happened on the night of the slayings that the surviving roommates aren't telling us? On November 12, 2022, a day before the murders, the university hosted an axe logging event in which multiple colleges came in town to compete against one another. A neighbor reported seeing a luxury black SUV with Colorado plates or Oregon plates parked at the property during the time of the slayings. Which colleges attended the event? The University of Montana, Flathead Valley Community College, Oregon State, and Colorado State.
Details now on the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students in Moscow. A crashed white Hyundai Elantra was found in Eugene, Oregon. Claims of the car being connected to the murders that happened in Moscow over a month ago started appearing online. These are photos of the car in Oregon. Eugene police responded to a call of a person sleeping in the car last Saturday night. They say there's no reason to believe the Elantra is connected to the Moscow murders, but they did send details about the car to Moscow police. Idaho State Police confirmed to KTPB that the car found wrecked in Eugene belongs to a person in Colorado. The car found wrecked in Eugene belongs to a person in Colorado. Moscow police say they are aware of the Elantra in Eugene and are working with the jurisdiction there in Oregon to see if it's related to the murder case.
I want to go back now to some breaking news. The suspect in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students has partially outlined his alibi for the morning of the murders.
So we know today was the deadline to file if the defense wanted to be able to use that alibi in the trial. Court documents say that Kohberger claims he was driving in the early morning hours on the night of the murders, as he, quote, often did to hike and run and or to see the moon and stars. It goes on to say that he drove that night throughout the area south of Pullman and west of Moscow, including to Hawaii Park. South of Pullman and west of Moscow, including to Hawaii Park.
Does everyone do like a wine night? Like, let's just do a wine night.
Now, in the state of Idaho, the defense is permitted, they may present witnesses on their behalf, and they want to. And one of the witnesses that they want to call is one of the surviving roommates. Take a look. This was a motion. Bryan, the accused killer, by and through his attorney, Ann C. Taylor, public defender, moves this court for a certificate to assist in securing the attendance of Bethany Funk as a witness on behalf of the defendant in this case. During the course of my investigation, it became known to me that Bethany Funk has information material to the charges against the accused killer. Portions of the information Ms. Funk has is exculpatory to the defendant. Ms. Funk's information is unique to her experiences and cannot be provided by another witness.
Right after it was revealed that the prosecution is hiding evidence, a former roommate and friend of Maddie's spoke to the news. This was put into play in order to refreshen the narrative to the public that Kohberger is guilty.
Idaho college murder case, we're now hearing from a former roommate who once lived at the house where the killings took place. Kana Whitworth is here in the studio with us and has more. Good morning to you, Kana.
Robin, good morning. So Ashlyn Couch moved out of that house on King Road months before her friends were murdered. And this morning, she shares the memories, both happy and haunting, including the moment she got that Vandal alert that changed everything.
I mean, I couldn't even walk to my car in the dark for months after, it happened.
Fear lingering with Ashlyn Couch after her friends were stabbed to death in their off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho, a home where she too once lived.
It crosses my mind more that could have happened while I was there. And, you never know, how long someone is watching your house.
The 6th bedroom on King Road was hers, and now this morning, she's speaking out for the first time on camera since Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin were murdered in November of 2022. Ashlyn initially signed the lease to live in the popular off-campus home, telling our station KXLY that she moved out in May of 2022 after graduating the semester before. But she stayed close with the girls, especially Maddie, sharing the last message she sent to her after getting an alert from the University of Idaho that there had been a suspected homicide.
I texted our group of friends and I just had said, has anyone heard from Maddie? And I remember my last text message to her was are you okay? And I feel right then and there I kind of just knew that something was wrong.
The man charged with their murders? Bryan Kohberger, a judge entering a not guilty plea on his behalf as his defense team says he was out driving that cold November night, as he often did, to hike or stargaze. But prosecutors allegedly linking Kohberger to the heinous crimes through DNA left on the button strap of a knife sheath found underneath Maddie.
You wish that you could just say goodbye, and that's one thing that I just wish that I could do at least one more time is just give her one last hug just to be able to say goodbye.
In reality, due to the circumstantial evidence surrounding this case, the prosecution is currently shaking in their boots because they are realizing Kohberger isn't their guy.
Most county prosecutors go their whole careers without making international headlines. Not Bill Thompson. Idaho is a state with the death penalty. Bill Thompson has decided to not seek the death penalty many times throughout his career. In 1997, Thompson didn't seek the death penalty against a University of Idaho student charged with first-degree murder. In 2005, Thompson reduced a charge of first-degree murder to second-degree murder in exchange for guilty pleas to second-degree murder. 4 years later, Thompson filed a notice of intent saying he would not seek the death penalty. It's widely reported that public defender Ann Taylor overturned a murder conviction, but Thompson told the Moscow Pullman Daily News that Latah County is the only prosecutor's office in Idaho that has successfully tried a homicide case without a body.
Despite the limited evidence against Kohberger, Bill Thompson is pursuing the death penalty for the first time in his career. They're trying to cover their tracks and sweep this under the rug.
Remember when you said... We have some breaking news on this Thursday evening out of the Bryan Kohberger case in Idaho. A Latah County judge has extended the gag order in the case of the 4 murdered University of Idaho students. This new gag order goes even further than the one initially issued after Kohberger's arrest.
According to new court documents, the attorney who is representing the family of Kaylee Goncalves claims the surviving family are allowed to speak to the public about the case under the First Amendment because the Goncalves family and their attorneys are not involved parties in the murder case specifically. Their attorney is now arguing they should be allowed to speak publicly about the case. A Latah County magistrate judge issued the gag order last month that prohibits investigators, law enforcement, attorneys, and agents of the prosecuting attorney or defense attorney from speaking to the media or public about the Moscow murders.
It seems like they're trying to suppress the story. We want to put rewards out there, like, don't do that. He doesn't have to go up the steps. Their points of damage don't match. I'm just gonna say it. It wasn't leaked to me, but don't say I'm leaking anything. I paid that bill.
Hi, I'm Scott Green, president of the University of Idaho, and I'm joined by Temple Kenyon, a fellow Vandal alum and my co-author on the forthcoming book, University President's Crisis Handbook.
Or other online retailers like Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You'll find it in bookstores nationwide on December 7th.
Go Vandals!
The family of victim Kaylee Goncalves, of course, has not been shy about sharing their feelings about what's been going on in the case. In a statement, the family threw a little bit of shade at Judge, quote, "With the most far-reaching gag order in the country, not allowing a victim's attorney to speak while letting the president of the University of Idaho write a book detailing facts of the case, the judge does not seem to understand the gag order himself. Now his logic is since some of the survey questions violated the gag order, they are part of the, quote, public record."
A new angle to the story you saw first from 4 News Now today. Public records from Latah County show a connection to the King Road house we never knew about until today. The president of UNI has a family connection to it. In fact, his family used to own it.
Warfare is based on deception. Sun Tzu believed that a skilled military leader must be able to use various forms of deception to confuse and mislead their opponent in order to gain an advantage and achieve victory. Sun Tzu emphasized that deception is not just about lying or trickery, but also about creating illusions and manipulating the opponent's perceptions. He believed that a skilled leader must be able to create a false impression of their own strength, weakness, or intentions in order to mislead the enemy and gain an advantage.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Prosecutors need to bring their A game, need to be able to lock down the timeline, lock down this defendant. One way they're going to do it.
Bryan Kohberger.
Bryan Kohberger.
Tales about Bryan Kohberger. Tales about Bryan Kohberger.
Deception.
Get some degree of closure.
Sir. There's no such thing as closure. This guy will probably end up with a life sentence unless a jury comes to their senses and gives him the death penalty. These families, and I know, as being a victim of violent crime, you get a life sentence for the rest of your life, wondering what your loved one went through at the time of their death.
The power of the media can paint the innocent as guilty and the guilty as innocent. There's something going on in this case that they don't want us to discover. Instead, they fill our minds with information, painting Kohberger as the killer before a trial has even begun, bringing forth doubt to anyone who tries to challenge the mainstream narrative. In the movie Arlington Road, there's a pivotal scene where the tension escalates due to the public fear and the need for reassurance following a tragic event. After a bombing incident, the community is on edge and desperate for information about who is responsible. This anxiety intensifies until the authorities release the name of a suspect, providing a sense of relief and perceived safety to the public. This moment highlights the psychological impact of terror and the role of information in shaping public perception and fear. Check out the scene here and how it relates to the Idaho case.
Didn't satisfy me. Miss O'Neill, when you first heard the news, terrorist attack in your own country, how did that make you feel? Come on.
Well,
what did you feel?
angry, scared, and stressed.
Did you feel safe?
No.
And then the next day, when they found Scobie dead, did you feel some relief? Did safety return? We don't want others. We want one name, and we want it fast because it gives us our security back. We can say, here was the one man, unlike the rest of us. We named him, and he's no more. And his reasons, they're gone too. But the truth is, we don't know his reasons. We don't know why Scobie did it, why it came to this. We can pretend we do, the 10 grand in taxes, but we don't know. And we'll never know. And still, we feel safe. Because we know his name.
Under a blanket of fresh snow, the University of Idaho's campus is peaceful by way of tragedy.
A lot of people went home after the news, so.
Ella Wise, a freshman, says her mom wants her home, but says she stayed for Wednesday's memorial, campus home on November 13th.
I'm coming home this weekend, back to Boise because of it. My family's very concerned, and rightly so.
Her roommates are going home too, students that say they don't feel safe as no one is in custody for the stabbing death of 4 of their peers.
More than 6 weeks after 4 University of Idaho students were murdered in their apartment just blocks away from campus, police say they have arrested a suspect. 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested in northeastern Pennsylvania and is awaiting extradition to Idaho on a warrant for fugitive from justice. During a news conference today, Moscow Police Chief James Fry said that Kohberger is facing 4 murder charges.
Tonight, as students return to campus, a sense of relief.
I feel better, sort of, knowing that they have the suspect in custody.
For weeks after the deaths of 4 young college friends, many in Moscow were afraid the killer could be among them.
I think a lot of people are wondering, like, how he planned it out, how it all came together, and why.
As the town starts the healing process and students return to campus, They will never forget these four young friends.
Deception.
Former attorney and founder of TMZ, Harvey Levine, recently aired an episode of his acclaimed new television series, Strange and Suspicious, in which he scrutinized the Idaho murder case, asserting that it defies logic.
I am obsessed with the Idaho murders case, and there's something that doesn't make sense. Bryan Kohberger is charged with the murders, right? 4 people were slaughtered in this house with a knife. How is it that one person who has never, as far as we know, committed any kind of act of violence, how can they walk in a house with a knife knowing that there are 6 people inside, and one by one, he kills 4 of them, knowing that there's still people left? I mean, you would think that people would hear screams, commotion, they'd come out, overtake him. So how does one person who's never done this before, it's his first rodeo, walks in with a knife? Okay, check this out. So this is the house. The number 1 is a bedroom where he killed the first 2 people. That's on the 3rd floor. Then he goes downstairs to number 2 and kills Ethan and his girlfriend in 2. In bedroom 3 and 4 on different floors, those are 2 people that survived. There's a bedroom in 6. He doesn't know if anybody's in 6. And by the way, there's a dog in 5. A dog can bite you. A dog can take you down. So he's walking in a place with 6 bedrooms. There are 6 people in 4 different bedrooms. There's a dog. There are 3 different levels. And you walk in with a knife?
That's the typical reaction everyone has upon hearing the evidence in this case. Imagine what a juror will think.
Harvey used the word weird several times in our conversation, and come next summer, if just one juror feels the same way, weird, Kohberger might walk out of his trial through the front door instead of the back. It only takes one juror.
It only takes one juror. Kohberger wouldn't have a chance for a fair trial in Latah County, and the prosecution knows this.
Prosecutors say the trial currently set for summer 2025 should stay in Latah County, where the killings took place.
We at least owe the people of Latah County the attempt to seat a jury here first, and not just rely on there's been a lot of publicity. There's been a lot of publicity everywhere. It's not Moscow. It's not Latah County. It's everywhere. So I don't think that a change of venue is going to solve any of these problems.
So why are they trying to deceive us into thinking it's best for Kohberger to have his trial done in Latah County? If it weren't for the survey done by the defense, proving that 70% of the locals had formed a guilty opinion of Kohberger, he would never have gotten a fair trial.
But Kohberger's attorneys argue that the Latah County jury pool is prejudiced by extensive publicity that's ongoing and inflammatory.
Right now, he's being held to have a trial in a county that believes that he is guilty.
The defense citing a survey they conducted finding 70% of locals have already formed a guilty opinion of Kohberger, arguing the trial should be held in Idaho's largest county, in Boise. But the state is pushing back.
Out of the population of 41,000 people in Latah County, only 25,000 are eligible to become jurors due to their age. Additionally, 4,500 people in the community are employed by the University of Idaho, and 300 work in law enforcement. Is it possible that they may be connected to Scott or Fry? If Kohberger has his trial here in Latah County, he will be found guilty by a biased jury.
The most shocking thing for me would be the other roommate was very lucky, I think. I'm extremely happy that they were not injured.
Is it luck or is it
deception?
A new angle to the story you saw first from 4 News Now today. Public records from Latah County show a connection to the King Road house we never knew about until today. The president of UNI has a family connection to it. In fact, his family used to own it.
Tragic loss of 4 University of Idaho students shocked the entire world. Crimes like that don't just happen to random people out of nowhere. It's strange that such a crime occurred in our modern age, especially given the national and international spotlight it received. We were focused on who committed the crime. Was it the fraternity, a friend, or a foe? But what if the answer was right in front of us all along? In an era where reputation and funding dictate the future of educational institutions, imagine a university president orchestrating a quadruple homicide in their town, not as a mere act of desperation, but as a calculated maneuver to ignite a crisis and line their own pockets. To what extent will one go to protect their institution's future?
Idaho, go, go, go. Wow. Well, thank you for such a warm welcome. And thank you, Don, for the warm welcome. I appreciate the endorsement of the State Board of Education and assure you I'll do everything within my power to meet the high expectations of this president, the University of Idaho, and our role in advancing education throughout the state of Idaho.
I'm sure I'm not the first to say that I never cared about Idaho before the 4 Idaho slayings. I had never heard of Moscow. In fact, when I first encountered the name, I thought of Russia, an entirely different country. I definitely did not know about the University of Idaho, and many others feel the same way. It's a small town with a small population, not a thriving city that many would want to travel to. If we think that way, we can only imagine how the people living there feel. For years, the university has been fighting to increase its funding after suffering major losses in enrollment, budget cuts, and a damaged reputation following C-19. The town was slow, with little growth, declining enrollment, budget cuts, and no advancement. The University of Idaho was on its way to becoming another Mount Ida College, which shut down in 2018 due to financial issues and declining enrollment.
It was kind of last second. It wasn't exactly very fair.
Students are still reeling, still angry. Mount Ida is closing. UMass Dartmouth is putting out the welcome mat, but that's not going to work for everyone.
They told us when we had no other option but to go to the one school that they provided. And what if I don't want to go to that big school? And it doesn't have my major. I'm dental hygiene.
Sarah Pruitt is one semester away from graduating. She, too, is out of luck.
I'm in the funeral program personally, and UMass doesn't have anything for us. The UMass people that I talked to were really nice, but that doesn't give me the major back.
In a statement, a Mount Ida spokesperson told News Center 5, "We are working with local colleges to accommodate students who may not have a perfect path within the UMass system to continue their major. In addition, we expect more than 30 colleges coming to campus for a transfer fair next week."
I feel like I'm a senior in high school, even though I'm
a grad student.
Yeah, grad student.
One class away.
One class away.
James Ames got his bachelor's degree here. He's one course away from his master's degree and forced to apply to UMass. But it's the loss of his alma mater that hurts.
Mount Ida's our home. I've been here for 6+ years, so.
What is the mood on campus?
It's depressing.
And it's not just students who are stressed.
All our advisors, I feel bad for them because even though they're being laid off, they're still putting in the effort to help out all the students.
What would a university president do to prevent the institution from becoming like Mount Ida and other colleges on the verge of shutting down? On July 1st, 2019, Scott Green was appointed the 19th president of the University of Idaho. Green graduated from the University of Idaho with a bachelor's in accounting. Before becoming president, Green worked in global finance, operations, and administration out of New York City. The University of Idaho was in a financial hole and needed quick improvement. During Scott's 2019 inaugural address, he emphasized the need to boost the university's reputation to attract more students and increase funding.
And a reputation for quality attracts students, which in turn provides more funding and for faculty and programs. It's a virtuous circle. Creating a virtuous self-sustaining circle of success will boost our university and help us achieve our goals.
It was no accident that they appointed someone with a background in business and a strong accounting acumen. He was also deeply connected to their Greek life, which means He knew how to navigate the system and keep things discreet.
I remember Dean Vetras finding me work at the student union, and my brothers in my fraternity, Kappa Sigma, giving me hashing work in the kitchen.
I really like the person that they chose to be our new president. I liked all of our finalists. I think each one of them brought like a unique quality to the table.
Green spent a lot of time in Moscow during his childhood because his grandfather worked at the MEM gym. He also attended U of I for undergrad. He was ASUI president and was a member of Kappa Sigma fraternity.
I think that there's a lot of excitement to have like a president who is somewhat familiar with what it's like to be a Vandal and what it's like to live in Greek life.
He definitely is very connected to this place.
But no one at the university foresaw the challenging months ahead. In 2020, the virus that swept the nation shut everything down. Just 9 months after taking office, Green faced another major blow, compounding the problems they were already trying to solve. Further declines in staffing, enrollment, and budgeting. Many students weren't using the campus due to the stay-at-home orders. If you watch my previous videos, I explained how the entire town of Moscow depends on the university, which in turn depends on its students and faculty. Without the university, Moscow would be a one-horse town, with just the basic necessities like a post office, gas station, or diner. Nothing more. Due to the challenges of 2020, Scott created a YouTube video emphasizing the need for growth in enrollment and research. He acknowledged the many financial challenges and expressed confidence that they would overcome them within the year.
We started this year, actually my second official day, by cutting $14 million from the fiscal 2020 budget. This was made necessary after 2 back-to-back years of $20 million losses. We were on track to cut these operating deficits in half to about $10 million this year before COVID-19 struck. By fiscal year 2022, if we execute on our plans, the deficit would have been completely eliminated, except for the impact of COVID-19 and any further state of Idaho financial holdbacks. Make no mistake, we're making difficult decisions to get there. A perfect storm of budget cuts, a tuition freeze, and additional cuts from the state, not to mention the still unknown losses and costs associated with COVID-19, all add up to financial challenges that are significant. However, we are keeping our eye on the strategic areas of excellence and making changes in our budget processes so that we can invest where there is growth potential for enrollment and in research that matters.
However, enrollment declined by an additional 1,000 students compared to 2019. Further worsening the university's already precarious situation. This is where things get interesting. According to the Washington Post, a new college is closing every week due to a decline in college-age students. I looked into the University of Idaho before Scott's arrival, and it was in rough shape. The university had been cutting its budget due to low out-of-state enrollment, resulting in staff layoffs.
Guys, that's right. U of I says these adjustments represent just 3% of their budget, so it's not the end of the world, but it's still not ideal. And leaders say changes to a program related to out-of-state students is playing a role.
Entirely related to enrollment reductions.
There's a good chance that more and more of these students you see on campus in Moscow are from Idaho. That's to be expected at a state school, but some could be from out of state, just not as many as there used to be. And that's a big deal because those kids pay more in tuition.
One non-resident student is worth, and by worth I mean only financially, is worth 3 resident students.
A very rough and a general description could be this. In-state students pay around $7,000 a year. Out-of-state students pay around $25,000. So why less out-of-state students? Well, over time, U of I has made changes to a waiver program for students from other Western states, meaning that students from the West aren't getting as cheap of tuition in Moscow as they used to.
There's a good chance that price-sensitive students will say, no, I'm from North Dakota, I'll just stay in North Dakota.
School leaders say it's become harder for international students to get visas as well. So to that, U of I is adjusting its budget by $5 million. $3 million of that are pure cuts.
It's no secret that it's a morale buster if you announce budget cuts.
No faculty or staff will be laid off, that's the good news. While certainly not ideal, school accountants hope that the cuts won't be terribly noticeable.
Any dollar amount measured in millions is a lot of money, but a relatively small percentage of the overall budget.
And over the next year or two, U of I is anticipating another $4 million in further budget cuts that will help create buffer room, the school says.
They downplayed the situation to avoid public concern, but Idaho State University, which is larger than the University of Idaho, laid off over 73 employees that same year. The University of Idaho implemented hiring freezes and offered retirement and separation incentives to reduce expenses amid a budget shortfall. Reportedly, over 61 employees applied for voluntary separation, and 93 opted for early retirement. Some faculty, like University of Idaho professor Denise Bennett, were dismissed after publicly criticizing university officials. What else happened that same year? A University of Idaho professor filed a discrimination lawsuit against the university, its law school, and former dean, Mark Adams, ultimately winning a $750,000 settlement, adding to the university's financial losses. This was all done before the pandemic. Once shutdowns began, the already struggling university faced further challenges. According to Krem News, the University of Idaho anticipated an additional $33 million loss if it didn't reopen for in-person classes, alongside a 5% enrollment decline and over 150 layoffs. In 1 year, the university faced a budget crisis, staff layoffs, a lawsuit, and a pandemic that compounded financial difficulties. At this rate, the university risked becoming another Mount Ida College. Around this time, the University of Idaho allegedly introduced critical race theory, or CRT, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI programs. This was during a period when many institutions were responding to or capitalizing on social justice movements. Idaho passed House Bill 377, an anti-indoctrination law aimed at preventing critical race theory from being taught in a way that could potentially indoctrinate students. Scott was under pressure and needed to act quickly. He denied claims that CRT was being taught at the University of Idaho, likely hoping to avoid budget cuts.
Affirmation program at the University of Idaho. And while I was confident that certain conflict entrepreneurs and those who earn their living by scaring people with such illusions have made these claims, which surfaced and were used to cut our budget last year.
That was University of Idaho President Scott Green, mincing no words in front of the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee Friday morning. The committee, whose job it is to set budgets. The U of I budget, by the way, got cut $500,000 last year because of accusations of social justice indoctrination in Idaho's institutions of higher learning. Last week, school presidents were back at the State House asking for that money back, and then some. Governor Little proposed a 7.1% increase in higher education spending to $22.3 million, and it would be the largest increase since the mid-'80s. When last year's cut was allowed to go through, based on the belief the University of Idaho was, quote, indoctrinating students with social justice ideology, end quote, President Green, who is a third-generation Vandal, didn't believe it. But he hired the law firm of Holly Troxell this past summer to find out for sure. These accusations were based on a report put together by the Idaho Freedom Foundation. If there was indoctrination, if there were classes where people were shamed for or their beliefs or their ethnicity, President Green wanted to know about it. And after a thorough and independent investigation, their conclusion came last month, and they were unable to substantiate any of the allegations contained within the Idaho Freedom Foundation report. U of I's initiatives related to diversity and inclusion stem from independent factors and are not designed to indoctrinate anyone with social justice ideology, including students and university employees alike. Nor, Holly Troxell said, did we identify any evidence suggesting such indoctrination has taken place. They put all that in this 26-page report that they released last month. Holly Troxell also said they were unable to identify a single complaint from students, from faculty, or otherwise about indoctrination from the school's diversity and inclusion initiatives. Not one. Which is why President Green made it clear, in so many words, in front of JFAC, to correct the record. We spoke with him shortly after his remarks to the committee.
The fact that they couldn't substantiate a lot of the accusations being made, it was a bit of a relief, but it was also a bit disappointing because you realize that this was more political than it was real, and that this was a false narrative. I think Idaho citizens deserve better, and my guess is they're not going to forget about this for a long time.
Are you worried about these discussions this year when it comes to the budget?
I'm always worried, but my sense is that
that legislators are growing tired here of all the infighting and the accusations, and particularly if they're false. I don't think legislators purposely take positions that they know are false. I think they're being fed information, and they should be angry at this point, too.
The Hawley-Troxell report also included instances where the IFF report cherry-picked program descriptions. They left out parts of them, took them out of context to build the narrative they were trying to push. If the Hawley-Troxell name sounds familiar, it's because they are the same firm Boise State hired last spring after they were accused of indoctrination within their university foundations courses. An investigation that also turned up nothing. The University of Idaho gets about a fourth of its $400 million budget from the state, so maybe $500,000 doesn't seem like much. But President Green wanted to make it clear this wasn't entirely about the money.
Although an initial investigation by the law firm Hawley-Troxell found no evidence, another inquiry I uncovered was that Mike Satz, a University of Idaho law professor, taught CRT and noted that several other professors also covered the topic. The lack of findings on indoctrination raises questions. The result was the passage of House Bill 387, which cut the University of Idaho's budget by an additional $2.5 million due to concerns over teaching CRT, with one representative even pushing to slash another $18 million.
Partially unhappy with this appropriation, but it is the appropriation that we need to pass to support our college and universities throughout the state of Idaho and show support for our Idahoans that are enrolled in those institutions to help advance their lives and create a better Idaho for our future. I'm happy to answer questions about individual line items or spending, but I would encourage your green light. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate?
I stand to debate against the bill. Senate or House Bill 387 is a reprisal of an earlier appropriation bill for colleges and universities. The prior bill had I shouldn't talk about the prior bill. I should talk about this one. This one has a $2.5 million adjustment downward from the governor's recommendation where we were originally going to stand on this bill. The problem I have with it is that we passed House Bill 377, which is now law. It's not pending legislation, so I think I can talk about law in Idaho. The law from House Bill 377 was the one about dignity and non-discrimination in public education. We decided that no public funding should go towards promoting critical race theory or advocating for social justice indoctrination in our schools, something that goes against their own beliefs and values. University of Idaho Office of Multicultural Affairs, a Women's Center, LGBTQA office, Equity and Diversity office. We should back up what we said with that by sending this budget back, adjusting it downward by another $18 million.
This was a significant blow to the university and coincided with an ongoing enrollment decline. According to the University of Idaho's performance measures, enrollment has steadily decreased each school year since 2017 to 2018, with the university consistently falling short of its targets. This report was released just 7 months before the tragic slayings of the Idaho students, drawing attention to the university's severe financial and operational challenges. The institution was in a difficult position, and some may view the situation as an opportunity for financial or reputational gain amid the crisis. One possible reason a university president might stage a homicide in their town could be to create a crisis that garners attention or funding for the institution. This could potentially lead to increased security measures, grant opportunities, or a heightened sense of urgency in addressing social or safety issues, allowing the president to leverage the situation for financial or reputational gain. The goal might be to present the university as taking a proactive role in solving significant problems, thus attracting support from donors, the government, or other stakeholders.
Sunday marks 1 week since 4 Idaho college students were murdered, leaving their loved ones devastated and police baffled.
He doesn't have to go up those steps. Their points of damage don't match. I'm just going to say
we never knew about until today. The president of UNI has a family connection to it. In fact, his family used to own it.
As they say they can see 4 people jogging away from the murder house.
Take a look around and keep your guns high. It's a war zone. It's a war zone. And I'll be fighting for my life, so keep your guns high. It's a war zone. It's a war zone.
Kohberger reportedly had a blank stare as he was arrested and also asked if anyone else had been taken into custody. Now we're also learning that a white Elantra like the one police had been...
Is it a coincidence that this is Green's childhood home, where the owner was allegedly pressured into donating it to the university? Is it a coincidence that Green was intent on tearing down the house, which had become a memorial, and essentially relocating that memorial onto campus as a healing garden to attract students? This move would allow people from around the world to visit the campus rather than the house off campus. With the national and international spotlight on the university, Green allegedly shifted the memorial to the campus, adding a donation form and encouraged financial support from a global audience. Is it a coincidence that 6 months after the tragic slayings, the University of Idaho entered into one of the most controversial deals in its history, purchasing the University of Phoenix for $685 million? According to the American Prospect, the University of Idaho had been struggling financially with declining enrollment and a need for new revenue sources. Acquiring the University of Phoenix, which has a student body larger than the entire Idaho higher education system combined, could provide the financial boost needed by expanding its online program offerings. According to the American Prospect, other leaders in educational institutions have raised concerns about the nature of the deal and the associated risk, calling into question President Scott Green's motivations. Before taking office in 2019, Green lacked experience in higher education. Instead, he brought a background in banking at Goldman Sachs and served as a financial officer at 3 prominent law firms. A recent investigation revealed that the University of Idaho funneled $7.3 million in consulting fees over the past year to Hogan Lovells, Green's former employer. When Ed News requested the invoices, the university completely redacted them, raising questions about where the money went. Given the university's financial situation, one must wonder where these funds are even coming from. If you still doubt that Scott Green is capable of doing this, consider that this behavior isn't uncommon among business leaders. They often exploit tragedy for profit. This sheds light on why Scott appears so heartless and money-driven. He destroyed the home before the trial, authored a book, and moved a memorial to the university while soliciting donations. What might he stand to gain from these actions? There is a psychological aspect to consider when a tragedy occurs. It tends to attract attention. As someone once said, all publicity, even negative, is good publicity. Following the deaths of the 4 University of Idaho students, the university experienced its second largest freshman class in its history in 2023. In 2024, the fall freshman class became the largest in the entire history of the University of Idaho. Additionally, millions of dollars were requested and approved by the state budget panel for security measures, along with future security costs. This situation led to donations from around the world, substantial funding for security, increased media interest, and a rise in enrollment. Essentially, the University of Idaho has become an exhibit that people will remember and be drawn to forever. Is it merely coincidental that this crime benefited the university and Scott Green at a time when the institution was facing significant financial hardship? I don't think so. While it remains unclear how this was orchestrated, I am continuing my investigation and will keep a close watch on developments. Remember, events like this don't just happen. Consider this. Why is he present at all of the press conferences and in front of the cameras? As a university president, what is his connection to this case? Is it a coincidence? Or is there something more at play?
Situation our close-knit campus is used to dealing with. First, my deepest condolences to the families. And friends of Ethan, Kaylee, Zena, and Madison. Excuse me. Their loss has been devastating, and they were bright lights in our community and are deeply missed and remain in our thoughts and our prayers. We've been working with Moscow police since we were notified on Sunday of the crime.
Soon, we will have answers. What is sitting in the dark shall come to light. Time is ticking. The trial is just a few months away.
We start with a tragic story out of North Idaho. The Moscow Police Department says officers found the body of a young Boise man this morning.
Huddy. Hey.
The body of 19-year-old Hudson Lindau of Boise was found in Paradise Creek near College Avenue in Moscow this morning.
Right here is the Paradise Creek, and May 1st, 2022, a 19-year-old University of Idaho student, Hudson Lindau.
There's something strange happening in this small town. Looking back at past cases, I realize it has been going on for a long time. If you have seen my Sorority series, you'll notice that many cases in this town are quickly labeled as having no foul play or given very little public information. Personally, I believe this is intentional, not just to avoid compromising investigations, but to keep things secret, ensuring that the average person remains unaware and doesn't question it, not even family or friends. In a small, low-profile town like this, it's easier for serious crimes to go unnoticed. One particular case involved Hudson Lindau, a Boise native and University of Idaho student, majoring in environmental studies, and an avid skier who was believed to know how to swim. On May 1st, 2022, just 6 months before the Idaho forced lanes, it was reported that 19-year-old Hudson left a fraternity party in Moscow, Idaho, and allegedly walked nearly 7 miles before falling into a frozen creek. A toxicology report conducted by Kathy Mabbitt revealed the blood alcohol content of 0.17. When this incident was first reported on Sunday, the following Monday afternoon, police announced that no cause of death had been determined and that they did not suspect foul play. Later, they ruled his death an accidental drowning. At first glance, hearing the story without seeing the area might lead one to think it was a tragic accident. But when you see the location and consider that an avid skier who knew how to swim is believed to have drowned there, it gets very chilling.
And welcome to the Sunday News at 10. I'm Doug Petcash. We start with a tragic story out of North Idaho. The Moscow Police Department says officers found the body of a young Boise man this morning. The body of 19-year-old Hudson Lindau of Boise was found in Paradise Creek near College Avenue in Moscow this morning. The Moscow Police Department says they responded to reports of a body in the creek around 11:30 this morning. The investigation is ongoing, but police say foul play is not suspected.
Before discussing Hudson, it's important to note that he wasn't the first University of Idaho student found dead in unusual circumstances. In 2013, Joseph Whiterick, a student from Haley, Idaho, was discovered under the Paradise Creek Bridge. Joseph had been at a fraternity party that night, but never made it home. When police arrived, they stated that they did not suspect foul play and believed he had died from hypothermia after freezing to death beneath the bridge. Fast forward to 2022 with the case of Hudson Lindau. Like Joseph Whiterick, Hudson left the fraternity party and was later found dead in Paradise Creek, though his cause of death was ruled as drowning. After reviewing the creek's water records, the depth ranged from a maximum of 4 feet to as shallow as a few inches. Hudson, who stood taller than 4 feet and was known to be a strong swimmer, seemed unlikely to drown in such shallow water.
Of November 13th, 2022. But I also want to talk about another individual. Right here is the Paradise Creek, and May 1st, 2022, a 19-year-old University of Idaho student, Hudson Lindo, was found dead right here. Right here, May 1st, Sunday. Authorities were called out here about 11:28 a.m. and Hudson Lindo was found here. Right here. Now, at the time, police said no foul play. But what really happened? Hudson Lindo from Boise was a student. Another student died. And we'll just take you up. I mean, is this a place where somebody would commit suicide? Think somebody put a body down here? You know, other university students involved, other people involved. Just throwing it out there.
Digging further, I found that Hudson was a member of Sigma Chi and was friends with Ethan Chapin.
Huddy. Hey.
Following his death, friends from Sigma Chi posted hotline numbers on their social media, implying he may have taken his own life, despite the coroner ruling it accidental. This raises questions. What are they trying to hide? Who's correct? And what did Hudson know that they didn't want others to find out? Hudson was remembered as a good guy who cherished his family and friends. His family created an Instagram post that read, "Love like Hudson," highlighting his infectious goofiness and warmth. The photo shared by his friends appears to have been taken before his death, and upon closer inspection, you can see the Idaho roommate's home in the background. It's indeed strange that two accidental deaths occurred in the same area, both involving individuals leaving a fraternity party late at night. Chief James Fry investigated both cases, and Kathy Mabbitt served as a coroner for each incident. I don't think this is a coincidence. In Latah County, the requirements to become a coroner are quite minimal. One must be a citizen, a resident of the county, and at least 21 years old. That's all. Therefore, anyone they are willing to elect will likely go along with the program, reinforcing a cycle where questions about accountability and transparency remain unaddressed. There's something peculiar about the 911 call made to the Idaho home on November 13, 2022, when the report was for an unconscious person, although it was actually for death.
Why did the two roommates in the morning call the police about an unconscious person when there was apparently a bloodbath in their home?
Kathy Mabbitt quickly disclosed the blood alcohol content of the two students who died in Paradise Creek. Yet when it came to the Idaho 4 roommates, she claimed that such information wouldn't provide any clues about the case. This statement was met with pushback from a former medical examiner who emphasized that a toxicology report could reveal the victim's state of mind, especially if they had allegedly left the bar. The former examiner raised a critical question. What if someone had slipped something into their drinks to disorient them? It's notable that both Joseph and Hudson, who were fraternity members, left fraternity parties shortly before their deaths. Similarly, on the night of the Idaho 4 slayings, Bethany Funk reported seeing Ethan and Xana at the Sigma Chi fraternity house. Tragically, shortly after leaving, they also ended up dead. This pattern suggests a troubling connection to the fraternity house, challenging the notion about these organizations upholding a positive brotherhood image. With Scott Green, a Greek member, serving as president, there's an implication that they feel untouchable due to their connections, leading to a lack of fear regarding prosecution or repercussions for their actions. If this behavior continues unchecked, more lives may be at risk. As I will discuss in my next video, there appears to be a long-standing conflict at the University of Idaho, marked by multiple parties and years of violence on both sides. Stay tuned for more on this critical.
Police have reiterated that this appears to be a targeted attack with no signs of forced entry into the home.
There's also newly released DNA evidence, which shows no DNA from any of the 4 murder victims that was found in Kohberger's home or car.
A new report claims the 2 roommates who survived the massacre were awake and texting each other while their 4 friends were stabbed to death one by one.
As a lion hunts for its prey, we are being hunted by those in control. An innocent wildebeest runs by, only to be caught by the sharp fangs of the lion. Trapped and unable to escape, it faces an inevitable end. This is eerily similar to the situation of an innocent man ensnared in the justice system by mere circumstantial evidence. In both cases, the outcome is driven by the need to catch prey and call it a day, with no regard for the circumstances or the families involved. There is no true justice for the victims. Injustice for one is injustice for all.
There was no threat, and our goal is to provide safety for this community. That's why we're bringing in the resources we're bringing. We want a close to this, and we want to do everything we can to let the people in our community know that we care. We want them to feel safe. We want them to be safe, and we're going to do everything we can to do that.
Your mind is still open to the potential, of course, that it could have been someone else?
Of course, yep. I go into that 100%, yep, of course.
Knowing that we cannot interfere with the important work and good investigations that are occurring. We just want justice for these victims.
That's despite significant pushback from 2 of the victims' families, but the university believes this will help students to heal and move forward.
Well, we have relied heavily on the expertise of Moscow police.
You heard the university president as well as the chief of police talk about this small community, and it's a very close, tight-knit community. And our hearts break for the families that lost their loved ones, the University of Idaho, the Moscow community, and even within our entire state. Be assured, the Idaho State Police is firmly in support of the work that the Moscow Police Department is doing, and we are providing every resource that we can to make sure that this comes to a conclusion, and the person or people that this is responsible is brought to justice.
And again, this comes from sources close to the investigation, that the first responders who responded to 1122 King Road on that horrible overnight morning incident in November 13th, they were not wearing protective footwear, booties, right? Fast. And for that reason, they tracked snow melting chemicals in from the driveway and parking lot into the home, and thereby potentially disrupted the retrieval of footprint evidence.
Well, we have relied heavily on the expertise of Moscow police.
The incompetent Moscow police officers failed to handle this case properly. Evidence was contaminated, destroyed, and may have allowed the real criminal to escape justice. Was this intentional or merely an accident? What we do know is that Moscow has never been a truly safe town. The level of corruption within law enforcement in this small town is significant, especially given its relatively small population. Some of the victims' parents don't even believe Kohberger is the true suspect. With no motive and no DNA linking Kohberger to the crime scene, it is becoming increasingly evident that this crime may have been committed by another group of people. But who?
We've been reporting on this upcoming trial, and I feel like every time we talk about it, we say it's happening later, it's happening later. It's been 2 years. I think the trial's still another 8 months away. What do you think about all this time that has passed from the time of the crime to the fact that we have not been to trial yet?
I don't have a lot of comments on that. I would say that I feel like the legal system is not about the victims, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
For the course in this business, you just can't have a frantic scene without people making sure lives are saved first, and maybe there is a footprint that isn't perfect or is gone, or maybe there are these melting chemicals that tracked into the house. But they did say they've got one latent footprint that was discovered with a blood sourcing chemical compound.
How's it going?
Oh, good. How are you?
Good.
We're not actually. I don't
You don't live here?
know. No, I don't.
We're here for noise complaints.
Yeah, they did.
Beat on the damn door.
Hey, who's the owner or who lives here?
I can go get them real quick.
Okay, thank you, please. Hey, who's the owner or who lives here?
But they did say they've got one latent footprint that was discovered with a blood sourcing chemical compound.
I can go get them real quick.
Okay, thank you, please.
The suspect is hidden in plain sight. Someone with the motive, fueled by envy and jealousy, wearing Van-style shoes and likely collaborating with other people to cause chaos. There are no signs of forced entry, no DNA evidence found in Kohberger's home, yet a knife sheath is conveniently planted on the bed. It's reminiscent of the game Among Us, a survival game where a secret mole's objective is to sabotage and confuse everyone else.
Where did you see this person?
I was asleep, and then I woke up
Okay.
and it was just me and Sadie home at the time, and we both lived down in the basement, and my door was closed. I heard my door open, and I looked over, and someone was wearing a ski mask and had a knife like this.
Oh, okay.
And so I kicked the out of their stomach and screamed super loud, and they flew back into my closet and then ran out my door and up the stairs.
It almost makes me think that somebody was specifically targeting that person. You know what I mean? Like if they went to a specific room and would know how to get into this place.
The woman tells police it was about 3:30 a.m. when a masked intruder entered her bedroom in Pullman, Washington, holding a knife.
Bryan Kohberger was named a person of interest in an eerily similar home invasion.
It all centers on a home invasion that was reported to cops in Pullman, Washington in 2021, a year before the notorious University of Idaho slayings. 13 months later, less than 10 miles away, 4 University of Idaho students were found slain in their off-campus house. It's now being revealed that shortly after Kohberger's arrest for quadruple murder, he was named a person of interest in the home invasion. The similarities? In each case, the intruder had a knife, wore a mask, and stayed silent. But there are also differences. Kohberger is 6 foot tall. The home invasion victim told officers the intruder was between 5'3" and 5'5". Police say Kohberger is no longer a person of interest in the earlier break-in. That case has been closed and remains unsolved.
The home invasion victim told officers the intruder was between 5'3" and 5'5".
Police are investigating reports of a man who tried to force himself into the apartment of a young woman he doesn't know. The victim posted her story on Facebook, and it is getting a lot of attention tonight. So much attention, in fact, that Pullman PD addressed it on its own Facebook page.
Recent events on the Palouse over the last few months have understandably put the Pullman community on edge. And now there's even more concern after someone tried to force their way into a WSU student's apartment Friday night.
Oh my gosh, that's scary because it's right here where I'm living at.
Selena Salou lives a few doors down from where the incident happened. She learned about the attempted abduction in a group chat. The rest of the community learned about what happened after the victim posted about it online. According to that post, after walking home Friday night, the PhD student noticed a black car parked outside her apartment. She says it was running and the trunk was left open. She got inside the apartment, but when she went to close the door, a man grabbed the door handle and tried forcing himself inside. The post says she had to use her full body weight to close and lock the door. She reported this to police shortly after, and then, out of fear, she left Pullman as soon as she could.
We need the community's help.
Commander Aaron Brashears says officers arrived on scene within minutes and made extra patrols that night, but they did not find the man or the black car. He says the man is described as approximately 5'5" and was seen wearing a green sweatshirt.
He says the man is described as approximately 5'5" and was seen wearing a green sweatshirt.
It is becoming clear that an injustice is unfolding in this case. If they can falsely accuse one man of a crime he didn't commit, it can happen to any of us. But if we stand together and fight back, we will no longer be easy prey to the injustices within the criminal justice system. Like animals in the wild, we are often expected to stay passive, making ourselves easy targets. However, when they fight back, the predator has no choice but to flee. Similarly, by uniting and resisting injustice, we can ensure the truth prevails and justice is served. It's Casper West here, signing out.